So for those of you who are just joining us, I am Foppe, and this community talk is from Brendan and Fernando, and they're going to talk to us about open source and managed ecosystems for FHIR in Azure. So the floor is yours, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much. Folks, good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon to talk about FHIR on Azure. So before starting, I would like to introduce myself. So I'm Fernando Barba-Freire. I'm a software engineer at Microsoft working at the FHIR service. Brendan?
Yeah, thank you. And good afternoon to the folks in Amsterdam, or early morning if you're joining from the US as we are. Super excited to be able to attend DevDays, even virtually. So my name is Brendan Kowitz, and if you can pick the accent, yes, originally from Australia, but have been working at Microsoft in the US for the past 8 years. Currently, I'm an engineering manager working on the FHIR service products at Microsoft. Myself and my team, we run the open source FHIR server for Azure and also the managed products, so Azure API for FHIR, and the more recent Health Data Services.
Perfect. And before I start talking about FHIR, I would like to talk about some of our targets for today. And on this presentation, we are going to talk about our OSS project. We are going to talk about our managed FHIR services, and we are also going to talk about the capabilities of our services and some of the enhancements that we are doing right now and improving our product forward.
Yeah, so to start off, I always strongly believe in this, that the right place to start a lot of our presentations is with like that strong sort of open source foundation. So I believe there are, a lot of tools already in the community that are sort of free and open source. And this is, one of the reasons why we wanted the Microsoft FHIR server to sort of start in open source as well. So if you travel to our GitHub page, you can clone, fork, download all of the source code. It's free, it's open, it's transparent. Feel free to dig in there and look at contributing. So I did put the label there. So if you find issues that are good first issues, you could, if you're very brave, sort of dive in there that way. The open source product, it does support 2 data providers. So it is compatible with a lot of the Azure SQL products. And then, of course, we have the document-based Cosmos DB data store as well. The way that we release the open source product is via Docker images. So this seems to be the most reliable way that we've found to do this. And how do you deploy those? When you get the PDFs, you should be able to click that blue deploy to Azure button. That will bootstrap you straight into the Azure portal. You can fill out a couple of parameters and you can spin up your own FHIR, like Microsoft FHIR server directly in your own Azure subscription. So you can see exactly how things are set up and play around with it. And then we feel like it only makes sense to mention the other open source products that we released that also support our FHIR server here. So one of them is the Azure Health Data Services samples. So this is going to give you samples about how you can set up Smart on FHIR to work with the Azure FHIR products. The second one there, the Health Data Services Toolkit. So if you need to extend a FHIR API sort of in a proxy or pipeline type of way, this toolkit will sort of give you a lot of the building blocks to be able to do that. FHIR Converter, of course, I think we did see that in the previous presentation, giving you a lot of those foundational elements to be able to convert different data formats into FHIR. And of course, the last one there, the health tools for data anonymization, giving you kind of a rule-based approach and an engine to de-identify different elements from the FHIR objects. Yeah, so that is a bit of a roundup of our open source. Okay, this slide. So if you were brave and you did download the source code and you're like, hey, how do I get started? It is easy. We do have a wiki link here. So a link to directly to the repo, the wiki page for building and debugging locally. There's a few one-time setup steps like install SQL Server, install the Cosmos DB emulator, install the storage emulation, and you pretty much are right then to hit the F5 key. And Visual Studio will compile and bring up a test server locally on your machine. So this is what my team do when we develop most of the features for the FHIR server. So you can sort of have that same similar experience as well. I think the picture there on the left, that is GitHub. That is also the primary place where we work. It looks like I committed some code. Don't worry, it's not a regular thing. I let the engineers take care of most of this, but from time to time I manage to sneak some code in there. So all good. It gets reviewed. Cool. All right. Next one.
So as Brendan mentioned, so if you want to rely at the Docker images created by our team and host the service by yourself, you and your team can do it. So you can do it, it's great. But if you and your team, you don't want to have the work of managing and hosting the service, we can do it for you. So besides the work that we do with OSS, we also work in our Azure offerings. And when we host the OSS code in Azure, we also provide all the security, compliance, certifications, stability, and the support that you expect from Azure products as well. And when we think about that, when we think about the managed FHIR services that we host, today we have two services. We have the Azure API for FHIR, and we also have the Health Data Services that currently it is the focus of our team, and improve the health data services. And it is secure, it is private. We have an SLA agreement of 99.9%. We are available in more than 30 regions. We have automated scaling, and we also have more than 50 industrial and regional certifications.
Okay, so a bit of a roundup of the things that have, I guess, happened in the last 12 months. So within the last 12 months, we do have Azure Health Data Services. So this is a new offering that we've released, and it does release a new concept called workspaces. And the point of the workspaces is to tie a lot of the health related services together, sort of, I guess, under one view in Azure. So these are including the MedTech service, which is dealing with your real-time device data. So you can sort of see those inputs there on the left. Of course, the FHIR API. So still currently supporting Stu3 and R4. And then also we, within the last 12 months, or recently have released the DICOM API as well. So if we click the animation, yes, so here on the right, so this is just, if you haven't seen it, so this is just a sample of what the view that you would get if you do go into the Azure portal. So you can sort of see in the middle there, after you've created your workspace, you do have the ability to go in there, start managing and creating services. And these are the extensions that you get as part of your workspace. So going top down there, so the events one at the top. So this allows you to pipe certain events from your services onto the Azure Event Grid. So this does include things like create, delete, and update from FHIR resources in the FHIR servers. And I believe also create and delete from the DICOM service. So if you wanted to create downstream applications that consume those events and start to become real time, that ability is there. Under the monitoring heading, so we of course have the metrics, so you can sort of keep an eye on the growth and usage of your services, and of course logs, which is referring to the audit logs that you could export to your own storage accounts that you'll probably be needing for for regulations and things like that. So yeah.
And about networking, you can also enable private links and protect your services from external access, or restrict the access just to a virtual network as much as you want. Yeah.
All right, capabilities. We probably could have done a giant table here or something like that. Yes. We're just going to simplify this into these categories. And if you have specific questions, feel free to bring them up at the end. So to go through the capabilities at a high level, so obviously the automated deployments, we've shown it in open source. Obviously in Azure, you have things like ARM templates, so you can specify exactly the environment you want and send it up. The security that you have that is built in the managed products is the role-based access, which is standard and part of Azure. As Fernando just mentioned, we also have private link. Azure API for FHIR also has CMK. I think I did see that mentioned in the poll as well. So CMK is encryption of the data at rest. So that is still only in the Azure API for FHIR product. Convert, so there is a $convert data operation built into the product itself. So you can hook that up to a Azure Container Registry where your templates exist and convert directly in the FHIR server. Enhance, so what we mean by that is after you've loaded your data in, you can enhance with custom search parameters. So we have put a lot of work into trying to make that experience seamless. And you do need custom search parameters if you are hooking up implementation guides into your FHIR product as well. So export at the export level. So we do implement a lot of the FHIR export specification. The B10 specification is on the radar as well, but export will currently do all of the base stuff plus the de-identified export directly as part of the pipeline. So that's, I guess, the extension that we have analyzed. When your data is exported, then you can hook up something like Synapse or Spark to start pulling in and doing those population level queries. And then, as we talked about, the events. So getting events from your workspace so that you can do some real-time integrations with your products.
Perfect. And now talking a little more about the enhancements that our team has been working with. So on import, so from our tests, from our validations, imports becoming 10 times faster than it was before. Export, giving our tests, it became 100 times faster than it was before. And we are also working in a new feature called Selective Search Index that will allow you to selectively select the search indexes that make sense for your application and remove the ones that doesn't make sense. And then you are going to save space in your health data service. And also, we are also working with the bundle improvements. We are making bundles faster, processing it in a different way. So, and everything that we are doing right now is to improve our customer experience and performance, ingesting or exporting data. So, and then as we spoke initially, we had 4 targets for today. So we went through the OSS projects. We talked about the managed FHIR, big overview about the services that we host, some of our capabilities, and some of the key enhancements. So thanks so much for listening to us this afternoon. Here is our contact, and also we have an email that you can reach out to our team directly. And if you would like, you can use also the Whova app at the speakers gallery. And this is it for today. Do you guys have questions?
Thank you for presenting. I did not see any questions on Whova. Are there any questions in the room? First go to him and then
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I have a question about the relation between the Docker containers that you have available and the version that's running in Azure. Is there a way to know which version of the Docker container I can run locally to test against, so that I don't have any surprises when I then deploy the code against the version on Azure?
Yeah, I can take that one. So yeah, so as we mentioned, like all the core libraries of our product are exactly the same. There are some small differences in terms of, we write, I guess, obviously bindings around that to integrate with all of those Azure features. But the core releases are the same. So if you look under /metadata, the metadata endpoint, we do tag or we do stamp the software version in every release. So the Docker containers will all contain software version. If you look under the metadata endpoint in the actual Azure products, you will see that same core FHIR version there. I did actually, a while ago, write a wiki article explaining how you could do this as well. Sort of like test the Docker releases before they make it to open source. I can probably provide that link in the FHIR chat or something like that. So, but yes, this is possible, and those versions, they are tagged right across the products. Yeah.
Thank you. There's another question in the room.
Thanks, Justin McReynolds, University of Washington. I'm curious about the samples that you cited, the Smart on FHIR samples, and whether there's a backend services example and how you envision that. If we think of Smart on FHIR as a launch from a user experience perspective versus the backend, and how Azure Health Data Services might, where it might fit in those various Smart on FHIR scenarios.
Yep. Another good question. So this one here, so for Smart on FHIR, there are sort of a few different ways that you can launch into Smart on FHIR. And Smart also has these, I guess, sometimes assumptions that it's coming, from an EHR, sometimes assumptions that, there will need to be patient pickers or third-party IDPs. So to solve some of those scenarios, we have leveraged Azure's API. So the samples that we talked about, it does hook up API in front of an Azure API for FHIR. So we have worked, quite hard on those integrations, and we've also tested using the Inferno test suite to make sure that it is doing the right thing. There is documentation, I believe, also on the new Smart solution that you should be able to hook up. So yeah, let me make another note, and that is another link that we could provide as well. So the documentation that we currently have.
It's also good to mention that yesterday, one of our colleagues, Jared, he had a presentation talking about Smart on FHIR inside Azure and other examples and etc. So.
Yeah, load them up and tie them on the stick. Okay. But first,
I'm not sure where I'm not sure where the sound is coming from, but I also saw a question on Huva. Vania asked if you could share the roadmap for HDS.
Good question. I don't think that we would be at liberty to share all of the roadmap for HDS. If you have anything specific that you're interested in, maybe contact us, and we'll see what we can share there. So, but there's probably a lot of things that you could see would be on the radar for us. But again, the best way to make sure it is to contact us. Yeah.
There's another question in the room.
Will you support the DIMSI calls on DICOM?
Yeah, I'll take that one. For DICOM, I'm not the right person to ask. I'm sorry. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are not DICOM specialists. So
we are living and breathing FHIR. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that one suggestion would be you can send an email to this address, and then you are going to put in contact with the DICOM team.
Yep, that would work.
I also saw that someone raised his hand in online, and can we unmute him so he can ask his question? I'm not sure.
It was Ryan. Okay. Oh, and by the way, in the PDF, we added the links to our GitHub repos. And if you want to contribute to our work and to our services, please feel free.
I'm unsure if I can unmute Ryan. If you could ask your question on Huva or yeah, reach out to Brendan and Fernando, you can ask your question there. That also marks the end of this presentation. Thanks to Brendan and Fernando for presenting, and to everybody here in the room. Hopefully I'll see you later today at the social event. And if not, have a fantastic rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yep. Bye.